Sheriff Daniel Brooks held both boys tightly as he carried them toward his truck, his boots crunching on broken glass scattered around the junkyard. The desert wind cut through his jacket, but he barely felt it. Shock and relief had taken over every part of him. Evan clung to his father's shirt, shaking from exhaustion and fear, while the Apache child buried his face into Daniel's shoulder, too weak to lift his head. Daniel didn't know who the child belonged to, but he knew one thing with absolute certainty: he wasn't leaving this junkyard without both of them safe. Paragraph 2 approximately equals 100 words. Inside the truck, Daniel wrapped a thermal blanket around the two children and turned the heater on full blast. Evan's lips were dry and cracked, but his eyes remained fixed on the small boy leaning against him. "Dad, he was all alone," Evan whispered. "I couldn't walk away." Daniel swallowed hard. His son had disappeared during a dust storm. Everyone assumed he'd gotten lost or injured. But here he was, alive, because he chose to save another life. Daniel dialed dispatch, voice unsteady as he reported that Evan had been found, and that they also had a surviving native child. Paragraph 3 approximately equals 100 words. The drive back to town felt endless. Every few minutes, Daniel checked the rearview mirror to make sure the boys were still awake. The Apache child's eyes fluttered, heavy with exhaustion, but he held onto Evan's hand as if it were the only thing keeping him grounded. Daniel recognized that expression, fear mixed with hope. He'd seen it many times in lost children, victims, and survivors. But this little boy carried something deeper, something ancient. Daniel felt a responsibility settle heavily on his chest, a promise he didn't fully understand yet. Whatever had happened out there, it wasn't over. Paragraph 4 approximately equals 100 words. At the clinic, the nurses rushed to help the boys. Evan was dehydrated but stable. The smaller child, however, was severely malnourished. While the medical team worked, Daniel sat beside Evan, brushing dust from his son's hair. "You scared me, kiddo," Daniel murmured. Evan nodded, eyes downcast. "I know. I tried to get home, but he needed help. He didn't have anyone." Daniel squeezed his hand gently. "You did the right thing." Across the room, the Apache child stared at them from under a blanket, his dark eyes wide and searching, as though trying to understand whether he was truly safe. Paragraph 5 approximately equals 100 words. When the doctor finished examining the boy, he motioned Daniel aside. "He's going to need rest, but he'll recover. Looks like he's been out there a long time." Daniel nodded, overwhelmed with questions. "Any idea where he came from?" The doctor shook his head. "He hasn't spoken much. Just one word, Taji." Daniel repeated the name quietly. It sounded familiar, rooted in Apache tradition. He informed tribal authorities immediately, but due to the late hour, contact might take until morning. Daniel returned to the children's room and saw Evan sitting beside Taji, offering him a cracker like a peace treaty. Paragraph 6 approximately equals 100 words. Evan's gentle gesture made Taji relax. He took the cracker with both hands and nibbled slowly, as if afraid it would disappear. Daniel sat down beside them. "Hey, buddy," he said softly to Taji, "you're safe here. No one's going to hurt you." The boy blinked, eyes wet, but didn't speak. Instead, he leaned against Evan, still holding the half-eaten cracker. Daniel felt something shift inside him. This wasn't just a rescue. It was a connection neither child could explain. As the night deepened, Daniel realized he would stay awake until he had answers, even if it meant waiting until dawn. Paragraph 7 approximately equals 100 words. Hours later, Evan slept soundly, curled beside Taji on the clinic bed. Daniel watched them, arms crossed, exhaustion settling into his bones. He replayed the old prospector's words in his mind. "Your son is alive, I saw him in the dump." How had a passing stranger found Evan before the search teams? And why hadn't he stayed? Something felt off. The desert didn't give up its secrets easily, and Daniel sensed there was more to uncover. Before he could think further, a soft knock interrupted his thoughts. A nurse peeked in. "Sheriff, someone's here asking about the Apache boy." Paragraph 8 approximately equals 100 words. Daniel followed her into the hallway, where a middle-aged Apache man stood waiting. His posture was strong but cautious, eyes sharp beneath a traditional patterned scarf. "I'm Robert Alchese," he introduced himself. "I received word about a child found near Red Mesa." Daniel explained everything: the junkyard, Evan's disappearance, and how the boys were discovered together. Robert listened quietly, his expression unreadable. When Daniel mentioned the name, Taji, the man's eyes softened instantly. Taji is one of ours, he said. He's been missing for almost a week. Relief crossed his face, mixed with concern. May I see him? Paragraph 9 approximately equals 100 words. Inside the room, Robert approached the sleeping child with reverence, kneeling beside the bed. He brushed a hand gently over Taji's small wrist, a gesture of both recognition and blessing. He's a strong one, Robert murmured. But he must have been terrified. Daniel nodded. Do you know what happened? Robert hesitated. We were tracking a trespasser on our land, someone who'd been stealing from old ceremonial sites. During the search, Taji disappeared. We feared the worst. For the next few days, the sheriff's house felt different, quieter, softer, filled with a tension that wasn't fear but concern. Daniel Brooks moved through the rooms carefully, checking on Taji as often as he checked on Evan. The Apache boy was weak, his small body still recovering from hunger and cold. Evan stayed near him constantly, offering water, sharing snacks, sometimes just sitting beside him in silence. It was clear the two boys had formed a bond that words couldn't explain. And though Daniel was exhausted, he felt a strange peace knowing he had saved not only his son, but another child. Paragraph 2, 100 words. The boy, Taji, spoke little. The few words he whispered came out fragile, like he was afraid they might break. He repeated his name a few times, softly, his voice barely above a breath. Daniel contacted the local tribal authorities immediately, informing them that a missing child had been found. They promised help as soon as possible, but reservations were large, communication slow, and families often scattered across miles of desert land. So Daniel waited. Each night he sat by the window, watching the moonlight spill across the yard, wondering what Taji had gone through before Evan found him. Paragraph 3, 100 words. Meanwhile, Evan seemed older somehow. The ordeal had changed him. He spoke less, thought more, and watched over Taji with the protectiveness of a brother. Daniel often caught him covering the boy with an extra blanket or offering him his portion of dinner. He was alone, Dad, Evan whispered one night. I didn't want him to die. Daniel placed a hand on his son's shoulder, feeling a wave of pride. Whatever fear Evan had faced in the desert, he chose compassion over panic. Daniel realized that his son's bravery wasn't born from lessons, it came from the kindness inside him. Paragraph 4, 100 words. On the fourth morning, the desert sky woke slowly, painting soft pinks and pale oranges across the horizon. The air was cool, carrying the scent of mesquite and sand. The house was still when a knock broke the silence, gentle, but firm, as if the visitor carried purpose. Daniel paused, sensing something important on the other side. He opened the door cautiously, unsure of what to expect. Standing before him were three Apache women, dressed traditionally, their expressions calm yet filled with emotion. Their presence felt powerful, not loud or imposing, but steady, like the rooted strength of ancient landscapes. Paragraph 5, 100 words. The woman in front stepped forward with grace, her hands clasped respectfully. Her eyes carried years of stories, loss, and resilience. We are Taji's family, she began softly. Her voice held gratitude coated with sorrow, as if she was thanking Daniel while mourning everything the child had endured. We came to thank the man and the boy who saved his life. Daniel felt a lump in his throat. Behind him, Evan peeked around the doorway, eyes wide and uncertain. When Taji saw the women, his face changed instantly, recognition blooming like sunlight breaking through clouds. Paragraph 6, 100 words. Taji ran forward, stumbling slightly, and the nearest woman knelt to catch him. She wrapped him in her arms, holding him with a desperation only a mother or grandmother could know. Tears streaked down her face silently. She didn't sob, she simply held him, as if afraid he might disappear again. Evan watched from the doorway until Taji turned and reached toward him. Without hesitation, Evan stepped outside. The little Apache boy hugged him tightly, clinging to him with a gratitude that needed no words. Daniel felt the moment carve itself into his memory forever. Paragraph 7, 100 words. The eldest woman approached Daniel, placing a gentle hand on his arm. Her touch was warm, filled with meaning older than any written law. Sheriff, she said, your kindness will be remembered for generations. Among our people, saving a child is the greatest of honors. Her voice carried the weight of tradition, but also personal sincerity. Daniel, usually composed, felt emotion rising in him. He had worn a badge for years, upheld the law, faced danger, protected the town. But this moment, felt different. It reminded him that sometimes the greatest heroism came from simple, human compassion. Paragraph 8, 100 words. The women asked if Taji could stay a moment longer, wanting to thank Evan personally. Daniel nodded, his throat too tight for words. One of the women knelt to Evan's level. You gave our boy hope, she said softly. Evan looked down shyly, unsure how to respond. I just didn't want him to be alone, he murmured. The woman placed her hand lightly on his cheek. You acted with the heart of a warrior, she told him. Evan blinked, surprised. Daniel watched, feeling pride swell inside him like a rising tide. Paragraph 9, 100 words. For the first time in days, Daniel felt something loosen inside him, the heavy fear that had wrapped